You're disturbing. I'll send you out.
I don't know how to use it. It's still working. Fine. What is it? Orange. I need it. I didn't really think something else. But right now, auto marker. I cannot find where it is. I have to. This is the crayon. The color pencil. I know. That's all you. I think I use it. Only boy colors on this. Okay. Why is it any color? No, I'm just letting him. It's mine. You asked to us about girl. Come on.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All praises and adoration belongs to Almighty Allah, the Lord of the worlds. May the peace and the blessings of Almighty Allah be on the noble prophet of Islam, Muhammad, his household, and those following his footsteps until the day of resurrection. We are all welcome to the 2024 edition of Ramadan Tafsir under the tutelage of NCUPM. We ask Almighty Allah to accept our ibadah, forgive our mistakes in this blessed month of Ramadan, and count us among those that will be forgiven. Ameen. Without further ado, inshallah, I would like to call on the head of our community, in person of Professor Adam, to kindly give us the opening speech. Jazakumullah khairan.
جزاكم الله خيرا. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له في ربوبيته وألوهيته وأسمائه وصفاته، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه وما تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وأنا معهم بفضلك يا أرحم الراحمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. We give thanks to Allah Azza wa Jal for His infinite mercies on each and every one of us. We thank Him for the immeasurable and the uncountable mercies, whereby we testify our entire nimatallahi la tusua, that He made it possible for us to again witness another edition of this year Tafsir, the Quran. This is indeed a wonderful mercy from Allah for how many people witnessed last year Ramadan, but today they are no more. So it's not because they are sinners, it's not because we are better than them, but out of the mercy of Allah, He spared our life to today. We thank Him profusely, and we say that for sure we cannot finish counting the favor of Allah. We pray accept the appreciation as ibadah from us, and also grant us the long life in good health and strong iman to witness many more of this kind of sitting, and also Ramadan. Is one thing to witness Ramadan, it's another thing to also count it interesting and important to attend this kind of sitting, which is a very blessed sitting that Allah is always proud of. So we thank Allah Azza wa Jal on this particular one again, and we pray He continue to count us among those people that will prioritize this kind of sittings and may accept as ibadah from each and every one of us. So we thank organizer of the program, so which is the Quran group under the community, headed by Dr. Ahmad and his team. May Allah Azza wa Jal reward them abundantly, and the entire community for bringing this particular kind of opportunity to us and to everybody all over the world that will be attending the program. So I welcome you all on board. So as you can see on the screen, the program is going to be we're going to have four Tafsir, inshallah. So today is fully online, and inshallah tomorrow is going to be both online and also physically. So where we are going to have iftar after the Tafsir tomorrow, inshallah, in the designated venue. For those that are not opportune to be physically possible to attend, they can still join us online tomorrow, Bismillah. Why those people that can come physically will be there. And then next week also on Friday, 22nd March, we are going to have another fully online edition. And by 23 of March, we are going to have the second one that's going to be physical and also online. So we look forward to seeing you in all these particular itemized Tafsir sessions. May Allah accept as ibadah from each and every one of us. Once again, thank you all for attending. So disseminate the message, and may Allah reward you also as you do so. So, wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Wa sallallahu ala subhanaka wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We thank our leader for this opening speech. May Allah reward you abundantly. Now, inshallah, I will be calling Mukhtar bin Ahmed Adini to give us recitation from the glorious Quran. Mukhtar, are you there?
نعم السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إذا وقعت الواقعة ليس لوقعتها كاذبة خافضة رافعة إذا رجت الأرض رجا وبست الجبال بسا فكانت هباء منبثا وكنتم أزواجا ثلاثة فأصحاب الميمنة ما أصحاب الميمنة وأصحاب المشأمة ما أصحاب المشأمة والسابقون السابقون أولئك المقربون في جنات النعيم ثلة من الأولين وقليل من الآخرين على سرر موضونة متكئين عليها متقابلين يطوف عليهم ولدان مخلدون بأكواب وأباريق وكأس من معين لا يصدعون عنها ولا ينزفون وفاكهة مما يتخيرون.
بارك الله فيك وزادك الله علما وفهما. May Allah bless you and increase you in beneficial knowledge. Ameen. Now, inshallah, we'll be delving into the Tafsir presentation, and this will be handled by one of our brother who is well known to all of us in person of Dr. Muiz Anibiri. Dr. Muiz Anibiri has been one of our consistent lecturer in many of our programs. We ask Almighty Allah to bless his knowledge. Dr. Muiz, inshallah, will be presenting to us the exegesis of Surah Al-Waqi'ah for today, and inshallah in our physical meeting tomorrow, bi'idhnillah. So I will call on our able lecturer, Dr. Muiz Anibiri. to kindly proceed with his presentation.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair. Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala amma ba'd. So after the brief introduction that was already given by those that have preceded me, so inshallah we'll start immediately with the tafsir of Surah Al-Waqi'ah. That's also called the event in the English translation of the Quran. First of all, the theme of the surah, right, is a Makkan surah. I know that most Makkan surah, they deal with issues of reminding us of the hereafter, issues of Tawheed, and issues of Al-Iman, and trying to entrench the belief of Islam in the hearts of the people before the legislation came, which was mostly when they were moving to Medina, right? So the Meccan surahs are mostly dealing with those issues that reminds us of the hereafter, and also to allow us to firmly establish our faith in Islam. So this is what basically this surah is all about. It's it's one of the great surahs in the Quran. Hatta some ulama, they say that if someone were to do tadbir, which is to ponder upon Surah Al-Waqi'ah, is going to be sufficient in terms of helping one to really establish faith in one's heart in regards what is required from us as Muslims in terms of fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, remembering the day of judgment, and having taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So basically this is what Al-Waqi'ah is about, and then we'll also go into details to talk about it. So in essence, Surah Al-Waqi'ah is related to issues of Al-Iman, of issues of faith. Now, also, it's very good that this surah, we are doing this tafsir in the month of Ramadan. And we know that one of the primary objectives of fasting in the month of Ramadan is to gain taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? As it said, Kutiba alaykum siyam, kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum, la'allakum tattaqun. That what fasting has been prescribed, ordained, made obligatory upon you, as it was for those that are before you, so that you may have piety, you may have taqwa, so that you may fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Surah Al-Waqi'ah reminds us of this, right? This important aspect of our Islam, to have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which goes in line with the month of Ramadan. Something else here, maybe to mention before we start reading from the verses, is that the matter of the hereafter, which is addressed in Surah Al-Waqi'ah, as you know, it's an article of faith, one of the 6 articles of faith. When Jibreel alayhi salam, when he asked the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, "Ma huwa al-iman?" And he said, "An tu'mina billah," that you believe in Allah, wa malaikatihi, in his message, in his prophets, in his angels, wa kutubihi, in his books, wa rusulihi, in his messengers, wal yawm al-akhir, and also to believe in the last day. Right? وَبِالْقَدَرْ خَيْرِهِ وَشَرِّهِ. Also to believe in predestination, the good and the bad of it. So here, to believe in Al-Yawm Al-Akhir, to believe in the last day, right, is a very crucial aspect of faith. And you see that here in Surah Al-Waqi'ah, those that deny this or disbelieve in it, they are considered to be from the losers of the Day of Judgment, the people that will be punished by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So without further ado, so let's start. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Said إذا وقعت الواقعة. Now here in Arabic, when it says إذا, is called a shart, right? It's like he's asking a question, and it's asking a question shartiyya, like a condition that if, in English you will say if this happens. In the translation it says when the event befalls, the day of resurrection, when it befalls. But if it befalls, when it happens, when is better actually, when it befalls, because there's no doubt that it will happen. So when it happens, then what? This is the question, right? When it happens, you're supposed to complete the sentence by saying then this and this and this and that. So he says here, Sheikh Al-Uthaymeen, Muhammad ibn Salih Al-Uthaymeen is Tafsir. He said the jawab, that's the answer to this shart, we call it shart. When this happens, then what? Has been removed, so that you can just allow your imagination to just go freewheeling of your imagination. What will happen on that day? There's no one answer, because there's so many things that will be on that day. right? And we're going to give examples, right, in this tafsir. Now, I say إِذَا وَقَعَتِ الْوَاقِعَةُ. Al-Waqi'ah is one of the names of Yawm al-Qiyamah, the day of resurrection. This is mentioned in other places in the Quran, but that's what it says Al-Haqqa, Mal-Haqqa, right? Likewise, when it says Amma yatasa'alun ani naba'il azim. What are they asking themselves about? It said what? About the great event, an-naba'il azim, alladhi hum fihi mukhtalifun, that which in which they are in disagreement. He also says in other places, when he says إِذَا شَمْسُ كُوِّرَتْ وَإِذَا النُّجُومُ انكَدَرَتْ إِذَا السَّمَاءُ انفَطَرَتْ, right? So it talks in different places in the Quran about this event, when it will happen, what will be the case in that day. And these are some of the things to talk about now. Now, before also, there's some things that they mentioned. Prophet ﷺ says in one of the hadith, and this is mentioned by Ibn Kathir, that one of the things that makes him grow gray hairs quickly, al-Waqiyah is one of them, because of the information that is contained in the surah regarding the situation and the events of the Day of Judgment. There's another report where people say that Surah Al-Waqiyah can make somebody rich when they read it. Ulama say this is weak. This is not correct. The reading Surah Al-Waqiyah can make someone rich. He said this is not correct. So it says Waqa'at Al-Waqiyah, when the event happens, which is the day of resurrection, when it occurs. He said, Laysa liwaqa'atiha kadhiba. Now he says, this day of resurrection, there is no doubt about it. Kadhiba, which means there is no doubt. Ulama, like Shawkani, says that this verse can be explained at least in three major ways. One of them is to say, Laysa liwaqa'atiha kadhiba, which means there is no doubt about its occurrence. It's for sure, it's going to happen. And as we said, this is a primary aspect of faith, to believe in the day of resurrection. Whether you understand how it's supposed to be or you don't know, we only know what we are told, the Quran and the Sunnah. As for the reality of it, then the knowledge of this is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nobody has the full knowledge of how the day of judgment will be. We only accept what we have been told from the Quran and the Sunnah. And this is exactly the Iman. Al-Iman bil ghaib, because these are umur al-ghaibiyah, these are issues of the unseen, matters of the unseen. I mean, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us many places in the Quran, says what? الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. Those are the people that believe in what? In the unseen. So to believe in the unseen, from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, or what Prophet says in the Hadith, is very, very crucial to your Iman. It's actually the Iman, right? So it's a So it could mean that it's being interpreted or the tafsir is giving us, there is no doubt that this will happen. It's not a doubtful matter. Another tafsir is, they say that kadhiba here means a person that denies something. So it means that there wouldn't be for the occurrence of this event anyone that can deny it, any denier of it. Because when it happens and everyone can see it in front of them and it's the day of judgment, khalas, you cannot deny it anymore. Another way they do tafsir of this is that to say that what? Because it's the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to mention also in this Surah Al-Waqiyah, He did so many things. He created us, so many things that we cannot. We are not the ones that did those things ourselves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one that did those things. So truly, He that says that there's going to be the day which all this the world is going to end, and there's going to be a day of judgment for people to be rewarded and people to be punished, then nobody has the right to say it is not true. Right? Nobody deserves, or nobody has the authority or the audacity to say it's not correct. So these three ways, ulama say that the first one is the closest, is the best interpretation of tafsir, to say that laysa liwaq'atiha kadhiba, which means that the occurrence of this event is not a doubtful matter. It's not something that you can doubt. These three is mentioned by Imam al-Shawkani, these three ways. And the first way, like Sheikh Khalid Asab say, this is the most accurate way to interpret it. However, all ways that we mentioned are all corroborating interpretations. As you know, in the tafsir of the Quran, according to ulama usul tafsir, that we have different types of differences when it comes to interpretation of the Quran. So when people differ in the way they explain a verse, it could be that they call it iktilafu tanawwur. And there's also what we call iktilafu tudad. Iktilafu tudad means that what differences in interpretation that are conflicting. So you hardly find this kind of differences in the Quran, especially in in tafsir, especially in tafsir of the Sahaba and Tabi'in and Atba Tabi'in. You may find some sects that may interpret something in a very strange way. It's called Ikhtilafu Tudad, but Ikhtilafu Sahaba, Tafsir Sahaba and the Tabi'in, most of the Ikhtilaf in that is Ikhtilafu Tanawwu, which means what? Various ways or variants in the Tafsir that are all corroborating and they are all plausible explanations. So none of them is conflicting each other. So it says Khafidatul Rafi'ah. Now, what does Khafidatul Rafi'ah? Khafida simply means something that is under, right? For like when you say khafd in Arabic, it means something that is under, like jar. That's why we have a tense or a case in Arabic called al-khafd or al-jar, something that is under. So khafida to mean something that is put under, rafi'ah to mean something that is elevated from a rafa, being elevated. What is that is being khafida and that is rafi'ah? All right. So it says here, khafidatun rafi'ah. So khafida is that which is brought down. So the man say that is humiliation. Some people will be humiliated on that day, or they'll be lowered into the fire. Khafida, which means they'll be brought down into the fire. While rafi'ah, those ones will be elevated into Jannah. Right? So khafida could mean some people will be humiliated on that day, and some people will be elevated on that day. Abdullah ibn Abbas, in his own tafsir, he said that some people will be elevated on that day. They will be rafi'ah, despite the fact that in this world they were weak and they were poor. But because of their faith and their ibadah and their khair, they will be elevated on that day. For some people that they were big in this dunya, they were big people, people of name and wealth and everything. But because they were pompous, they were arrogant, and they were disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will be khafida, they will be humiliated on that day and brought into and put into the fire. Also, some people give some other explanations, but this is the best way to that I have mentioned to explain this verse, khafida to rafi'. Then he moves on and says, إِذَا رُجَّتِ الْأَرْضُ رَجَّةً. This rujja here means al-ittirab, which is to shake something at its base. And that's the way an earthquake occurs, for instance. It's ground shaking from the base. And this is similar to the verse in the Quran where it says, إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا. When the ground is shook, right? When there's ground shaking, أَخْرَجَتِ الْأَرْضُ أَثْقَالَهَا. And the ground throws out that which is its burden, which is inside it. Also, it says, regarding this, is Rujat al-Ardu. Also says in the Quran, it says, Ya ayyuhan nas ittaqu rabbakum inna zalzalata as-sa'ati shay'un 'azim. That all you believe, fear your Lord, because the shaking of the ground, the shaking at the hour is something that is great, is something that is heavy. So he says, Rujat al-Ardu rajja. Once the ground is shook, right? Rajja. This is one of the events of the day of judgment, or of Yawm al-Qiyamah. Another thing is the mountains. The mountains will be ground to dust, ground to powder, right? As if they were not even there. Now, he says, وَبُسَّتِ الْجِبَالُ بَسَّ فَكَانَتْ هَبَاءً مُنْبَثًّا. It's now like as if this mountain that was, despite being solid, being firm, being imposing on the earth, it's now like as if it is haba'an. Haba'an means like particles, fine particles, right? Fine particles like those ones you see coming from the sand, the dust that comes from the earth, right? That's dust that comes from the sand, as fine as it is. But it could be that when you see the sun sometimes, the rays of the sun sometimes, you can see that there's some particles flowing about in those rays, something as fine as that. So that's what I'm describe it. Just like also in the Quran, in I think Surah Al-Ankabut, where Allah SWT says, وَقَدِمْنَا إِلَى مَا عَمِلُوا مِنْ عَمَلٍ فَجَعَلْنَاهُ أَبَاهًا. On the day, those are people that commit shirk, their actions, despite doing a lot of actions in this world, but they are people that used to worship besides Allah or associate partners with Allah. He said, we'll examine their deeds on the day of judgment, and their deeds will become like what? Haba'an, like scattered dust, like scattered particles, things that don't have any benefits of that day, which means it will not be of benefit to them. So here also mentions this word where it says haba'an mumbatha. It means that the mountains then will be like what? Like dust that is scattered, right? And there's no benefits. You cannot find any benefits in them. He said this is similar also to the verse in the Quran where Allah says, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْجِبَالِ فَقُلْ يَنْسِفُهَا رَبِّي نَسْفًا فَيَذَرُهَا قَاعًا صَفْصَفًا لَا تَرَى فِيهَا عِوَجًا وَلَا أَمْتًا. He said he will ask also about the day, about the mountain, about the Jibal. He said, قُلْ يَنْسِفُهَا رَبِّي نَسْفًا. He said, also he said the mountains will be ground to dust. And you will not find any benefits in them. And he said, وَكُنْتُمْ أَزْوَاجًا ثَلَاثًا. And he said, you will be grouped into 3 groups on that day. Azwajan. Azwaj here means categories or groups. Like in the Quran, where Allah also says, Surah An-Naba, where he said that, أَلَمْ نَجْعَلِ لَكُمْ أَلَمْ نَجْعَلِ الْأَرْضَ مِهَادًا, right? أَلَمْ نَجْعَلْ لَكُمُ الْأَرْضَ مِهَادًا وَالْجِبَالَ أَوْتَادًا وَخَلَقْنَاكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا. And we have created you also in groups. وَمِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقْنَا الزَّوْجَيْنِ. And from all things we have created 2 groups. Right? We have created you in 2 species, in 2 kinds. So what he says here, what? وَكُنْتُمْ أَزْوَاجًا ثَلَاثًا. You will be in 2 groups. You'll be in 3 groups. You'll be in 3 categories. So he wants to talk about some of the key aspects of this surah, which is the fact that people on the Day of Judgment will be in 3 groups of 3 categories. So the first category, so it first of all talks about those 3 categories by saying, وَأَصْحَابُ الْمَيْمَنَةِ مَا أَصْحَابُ الْمَيْمَنَةِ. So there will be one group, there are people of the right, Maymana or Mayamin from Yamin. And then it says, مَا أَصْحَابُ الْمَيْمَنَةِ. What is this أَصْحَابُ الْمَيْمَنَةِ? Who are these أَصْحَابُ الْمَيْمَنَةِ? Now, this is one way to interpret that by saying, for أَصْحَابُ الْمَيْمَنَةِ مَا أَصْحَابُ. What is this أَصْحَابُ الْمَيْمَنَةِ? And then we expect that later on in the surah, Ashabul Maymana will be explained to us. Who Ashabul Maymana is will be explained to us. Some ulama also say that Ma Ashabul Maymana here is what is ta'ajjub wa tafkhim. Sheikh Uthaymeen said this is like ta'ajjub. Ta'ajjub means we are trying to show amazement, right, at this group, and try to tafkhim means we are trying to applaud or make big the matter regarding this Ashabul Maymana. So because Ashabul Maymana are people that are on the right, they are people that will be rewarded by Allah. There will be people in na'im, enjoyment and all that. So we're trying to show amazement at this. They say, Ashabul Mash'ama from Shu'um or Shimal, it means people on the left. Ma Ashabul Mash'am. What is this group? Also, Ashabul Mash'am. And also we're trying to show amazement and then do tafkhim also of the matter of this Ashabul Mash'ama in terms of punishment, in terms of the horror that they are going to face on the Day of Judgment. Sema Ashabul Mash'am. And then the third group of people said was Sabiqun as-Sabiqun. Okay? As-Sabiqun as-Sabiqun. Ulama say that the explanation of Sabiqun means As-Sabiqun fi dunya hum as-Sabiqun fi al-akhir. Right? As-Sabiqun ila al-khairat. Allah says fastabiqul khairat. Right? We should seek to do good things as soon as we can. We should compete with each other. And in all that, those that want to compete should compete with one another. So we should try to compete and try to do good things. We should try to rush towards doing good things in this dunya. Because those people that do those good things, right, they compete with one another. They try to surpass others in doing good things in this dunya. They'll be the ones that will surpass other people in terms of their daraja, their status in the hereafter. That's why it was sabiquna as-sabiqun. And it was sabiquna fi dunya fil amal as-salihah sabiquna fil akhir. They are also going to sabiqun, the foremost people in this world. They will also be the foremost people in the hereafter. And it says, describing this sabiquna sabiqun, it said, ulaika al-muqarrabun. And muqarrabuna inda rabbihim. They will be the ones that will be close to their Lord on the Day of Judgment. They will be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the Day of Judgment. Ulaika al-muqarrabun fi jannatin in the Jannah. Now, before we move forward here, it has mentioned 3 groups have been mentioned now. Ashabul Yamin, wa Ashabul Shimal, Ashabul Maymana, and Ashabul Mash'ama. And then we have As-Sabiqun, As-Sabiqun. Moving forward from this, starts from verse 10. Now it's going to start describing the most superior group, which is As-Sabiqun, As-Sabiqun. After describing the most superior group, they need to move on to the next group, which is what? Ashabul Yamin. And then after that, Ashab Ash-Shimal. So here he's talking about As-Sabiqun, As-Sabiqun. He says, Ulaika al-Muqarrabun. They are the ones that what? They are the ones that are going to be close to their Lord on the day of judgment. Fi Jannatin Na'im. Now, something Sheikh Uthaymeen mentioned in his tafsir here is that, first of all, their status, which is Al-Qurba, when he says, Ulaika al-Muqarrabun, being close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, being close to the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That status is more important than the place, which is Jannah. Despite the fact that Jannah, all of them will be in Jannah, right? From people of Ashab al-Yamin, including As-Sabiqun, As-Sabiqun. But status as well, which is what? Al-Qurba, now takes precedence to what? The place, which is Jannah. And that's why Al-Qurba comes first. That's the status, the place in Jannah, where it says, Ulaika al-Muqarrabun. It says, Fi Jannatin. And the Arabs used to say, Al-Jar qabla al-Dar. It means what you consider who is your neighbor first before you think about the house. Where your place, your position first before the house. So he says, Fi Jannatin Na'im. We know Jannah, right? Which is what? It says, and that's paradise of delight, where there will be a lot of Na'im of Jannah. And some of those Na'im of Jannah is going to mention it in the following ayahs. It says, Sullatun min al-awwalin. It says, Sulla means what? Jama'ah. It means a group of people. A large group of people. So there will be a large group of people from the awwalin. Then who is awwalin? Before we go to there, it says, وَقَلِيلُ مِنَ الْآخِرِينَ, and few from the others. So who are the others? So there'll be a large group of people that are going to be from the Sabiqun and Sabiqun, and these people are from the awwalin. And there are going to be a few of them, that are going to be from Sabiqun and Sabiqun, from the Akhirin. As for the awwalin, some of Mufassirun say that the awwalin here refers to the previous nations before Prophet Muhammad, those that followed the prophets before Prophet Muhammad. While Akhirin are those, the later Ummah, that's Ummah of Prophet Muhammad. Some ulama say no. Why? Because the hadith of Prophet Sallallahu here, he said, Prophet Sallallahu said, half of his people, half of this Ummah of Muhammad will be in Jannah, will be the ones in Jannah. So they say here, it is Sullat min al-awwalin means a large group of people from the previous nations before the followers of Muhammad, along with the foremost people from the followers of Muhammad. Yani, so we are saying that large group of people from previous nations, those that followed the prophets, the past prophets, and then the foremost people in this ummah, which are, of course, we know, the Sahaba, the Tabi'in, and Atba Tabi'in, first 3 generations of Al-Islam. And of course, Prophet ﷺ explained this in his hadith, where he said, خَيْرُ النَّاسِ خَرْنِي ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ يَلُونَهُمْ ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ يَلُونَهُمْ. The best of generations is my generation, or the best of people is my own. Those that follow the Prophet ﷺ is generation, then those that follow them, then those that follow them in good. Call them Salasatul Qurun al-Mufaddala, which is the first 3 generations, the past generations. So another tafsir, I think, and this was given by Sheikh Uthaymeen, is that Sullatu min al-awwalin means what? A large group of this Sabiqun al-Sabiqun will be among the first 3 generations of Al-Islam, and a small group of them will be from the later generations of Al-Islam. So the last 2 tafsir is okay. I mean, is corroborating in the sense that a large group of people from the awwalin will come from past nations, okay, and then from the first 3 generations of Islam. Or a small group of the Sabiqun or Sabiqun will come from the later generations of Islam, which means it's going to be highly competitive for the later generations of Islam to be from amongst the foremost group of those people in Jannah, right? And this is what we all pray for, right? This is what we all work towards. That's why we work hard to achieve this. And as it's going to mention later on in this surah, doing that is by doing the wajibat, the things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us to do, staying away from the muharramat. This is the basic. And then doing the thing that are mustahabbat. It is not wajib, it's not mandatory, but they are recommended practices in Islam, as well as staying away from what the makruhat. Things that they are not necessarily forbidden, but they are disliked matters in the deen. It is close to being forbidden, but doesn't take the ruling of being forbidden in the Sharia for them makruhat. So people that are as-sabikun, people that they want to pursue and they want to be foremost, then there are people that they do the wajibat, they do the mustahabbat, they avoid the muharramat as well as the makruhat. And these are very few from the later generations. Then he says about them, as-sabikun, he says, ala sururin mawduna. They're going to be upon surur here, of course, from sarir, refers to cushions, right? Refers to cushions. It says here they will be on thrones woven with gold and precious stones. That's the interpretation here in English. That ala sururin mawduna, on thrones or cushions from sarir, beds like this. Mawduna is muhalla bil-dhahab. This is what the Mufassirun say, which means what? They are being adorned. These cushions and these thrones, they are being adorned with gold. And some of them also mention with other pearls as well. Gold and silver and other precious stones, which is this glorious place for them to sit. And they'll be sitting there, it says, muttaki'ina alayha mutaqabilin. They'll be resting on it, reclining on it. Al-ittika, it means to recline, and also recline, resting your arm and resting your back on these cushions. It says muttaki'ina alayha, and it says mutaqabilin, facing one another. So they say the space is so large that people will not be facing the back of another person. Nobody will be behind another person, or nobody's back will be turned to another person. Everybody will be able to face each other, mutaqabilin, face to face, right? Everyone, Jannah. Nobody will have to look at another person's back. Another way, some of them say that this could also have an implication in terms of that their hearts are clear and pure towards their other people. Everybody's heart is clean and clear towards other people. Nobody's turning his back on another person. Nobody has to look at another person's back. So he says, muttaqina alayha mutaqabilin. He said, yatufu alayhim wildanun mukhalladun. He said, they'll be moving around them, serving them, wildanun, which are young boys, young chaps, mukhalladun, that were created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be everlasting. I think you can move the mushaf now to the next page. متكئين عليها متقابلين يطوف عليهم ولدان مخلدون. Okay, so these young chaps, they'll be moving around them, and they are created to be what? مخلدون. كأنهم, says in another part of Quran, says كأنهم لؤلؤ المكنون. They're like precious stones that have been sealed and covered and protected from any form of defect. And it says يطوف عليهم. يطوف عليهم with what? He said what? بأكواب وأباريق وكأس من معين. وأباريق وكأس من معين. So it says these young boys, they'll be moving, they'll be serving them with cups. This akwab means the plural of cup, right? بأكواب وأباريق, jugs, vessels, right? وكأس من معين. Kind of wine, right? So they'll be serving them with this kind of wine. And then he describes this kind of wine in the Quran. He says, لا يصدعون عنها ولا ينزفون. As-suda', of course, means headache, right? So it's not like there's going to be any hangover from drinking this wine, or like they will lose their aql. Al-yunzifun, and nazf means that what? Their senses will go away with this what? With drinking of this wine. So it says, لا تصدعهم رؤوسهم. So they will not have headache from taking this kind of drink. ولا ينزفون, nor will their senses go away, just as it happens to those that drink wine in this dunya. Of course, the wine they drink in this dunya is alcoholic. So here, the point here now is that despite the fact that it's called wine, does not necessarily mean that there's any there's a similarity in composition with what you have in this world. The only similarity is in the name, right? The only similarity is in the name. And all the things we read, by the way, about Jannah, as we are reading now, the only similarities are in names. As for their realities, right? Then the reality, la ya'lamuha illallah. It's only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the reality. It's only when you get to Jannah, that's when you know what's the reality of those things. The similarity is in the names. And what we believe in, all that we are told about it, and how we're going to feel to make it close to our own understanding in this dunya. And that's why Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith, he said that, talking about Jannah, he said, فِيهَا مَا لَا عَيْنٌ رَأَتْ وَلَا أُذُنٌ سَمِعَتْ وَلَا خَطَرْ عَلَى قَلْبِ بَشَرٍ. So anything that is said that you're going to hear in Jannah, you've never heard it before in this world. Anything that is said you're going to see Jannah, you've never seen it before in this world. Neither can you even imagine it. So here, the similarities we're talking about here are just similarities in names. As we know, even in this dunya, in this world, two things having the same name does not mean their content is the same or their composition is the same. They just maybe just have the same name. So the same way like that. You should not think that when we talk about these things, they are exactly like what we have in this dunya. So he says, what بأكواب وأباريق وكأس من معين لا يصدعون عنها ولا ينزفون وفاكهة مما يتخير. Now, al-faqiha, of course, means fruits. He said, مما يتخيرون, from whatever they wish, or from whatever they want to choose. But ikhtiyar means to choose something. But ikhtiyar here also means that even before they choose it, it's only what they want. That which they love, which they please with, which they like, from different kinds of species and different types. So it says here, and then it says, وَاللَّحْمِ طَيْرٍ مِمَّا يَشْتَهُونَ. There's from the flesh of fowls that they desire. Atoy, to you, of course, means birds, right? And the lahm means meat, right, of flesh, from that which they love, which they like. Now, some Mufassirun, I think Al-Alusi said that, or I think maybe Sheikh Femin, one of the Mufassirun said, this is in any form that they want to take this meat. Any way they want, any way you can imagine, any way that you love to have it. As you know that these things could also be made in different ways in this world. Also, I think Al-Alusi said that here he mentions fruits before Allah, because he, in his own, when tadabbur, is that fruits are more beneficial than to the body and easy to digest more than meat. This is just his own way of pondering on this verse. So that is one way why, one reason why al-faqiha, the fruit, was mentioned before the lahm. But anyhow, whatever somebody wants in the Jannah, they're going to have it from the good things. Faqiha, whatever they want to choose from lahm, whatever they desire, they will have that. And it says, وَحُورٌ عِينٌ. Al-hurun ain, yeah, and there will be hur, that's fair females, bayad, very pure, spotless, with wide and beautiful eyes, as wise for the pious people in Jannah. وَحُورٌ عِينٌ. That's what he says here in the explanation. And then it says, كَأَمْثَالِ لُؤْلُؤِ الْمَكْنُونِ. And the example of this hurun ain, it will be like a lu'lu, which is what? Pearls that are covered and protected, fresh, right? Not damaged by the sun, by the heat of the sun, or dust, or any other thing that could affect it or pollute it. So it's going to be clean, pure, and clear. So this is how it describes hurun ain, and referring to females that will be spouses for the males in Jannah. It says, Jaza'an bima kanu ya'malun. And all this will be as a reward for that which they used to do in this book. Jaza'an bima kanu ya'malun min al-hasanat wal-a'mal as-salihat fi dunya. It says, La yasma'una. Moving forward, says, La yasma'una fiha. You will not hear in Jannah lagwan wala ta'thima. There's not going to be any kind of false speech in Jannah. Illa qilan salaman salam. They will only hear of good speech. or speech that when it says salam, speech that is safe and clean, right? Safe from any form of impurity, or safe from any kind of being vulgar, right? You only hear things that are good, things that are pure in general. So this is where it stops when it talks about as-sabiqun, as-sabiqun, right? We have three groups, as-sabiqun, as-sabiqun. Now it moves to the next group and said, wa ashabul yamin. Now don't forget that the as-sabiqun, as-sabiqun, they're the foremost of people, they're muqarrabun, right? And that many of them are going to be from the past generations, right? First three generations of Islam, as well as from those that followed the Prophet before Prophet Muhammad sallallahu. And only few of them will be from the later generations, which means it's very competitive to be amongst this group, and it requires one to do a lot of good deeds. And it says, Washabul Yamin. This is the next group of people. And this group of people are also from people that will be successful. Washabul Yamin, ma ashabul Yamin. Ta'ajjub, aidan. Also showing amazement, and also doing tafkhim of the armor of these people, like saying that these people, mashallah, as in how great is the status, the makana of these people, how great is the status of Ashabul Yamin. Then he goes on to talk about what's the favors, what is the reward for these people in general. And he says, Fi sidrin makhdud. So they'll be among thornless low trees. A sidr, right? Of course, we know Shajarat al-Sidr, which is a kind of tree that's in this dunya. And the shade is usually very cool, as some Mufassirun say, that has very cool shade. However, again, like we said earlier, that we're not talking about the same thing. It's the same name, we're not talking about the same reality. We're not saying that the Sidr in this dunya is the same as the Sidr in the hereafter. That's not what we're saying. They're different, just similar names. The Sidr in Makhdud, which is what? Thornless. It will have no thorns, no shalk, which means it has no thorns. And also it says what? Watalhin and dud. And talh here means it's a tree that is famous amongst the Arabs. They call it banana trees, right? And it is piled with fruits in layers, one above the other. So they will have this talh al-mandud with all those fruits that are delicious and nice to have. Wama in maskub, they will also have cups filled with water overflowing, and by water flowing constantly. Here he said wama in maskub, water flowing constantly. And Ibn Qayyim says something that it flows without in a very unique way, right? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is capable of doing all things. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says it's going to be in this way, right, from springs and things like that, then yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is capable of doing that. So وَمَاءٍ مَسْكُوبٍ وَفَاكِهَةٍ كَثِيرَةٍ, and also there will be a lot of fruits, okay, for them as well. Ashabul Yamin. وَفَاكِهَةٍ كَثِيرَةٍ لَا مَقْطُوعَةٍ وَلَا مَمْنُوعَةٍ. Now here it says مَقْطُوعَ means that مَقْطُوعَ means to cut something. مَمْنُوعَ means something to be prevented. But the first instruction says لَا مَقْطُوعَ فِي الْأَزْمَانِ, right? وَلَا مَمْنُوعَ فِي الْأَثْمَانِ, which means that what? It will not be stopped. There's no time there's going to be scarce. It's never going to be scarce. It's always going to be available, right? And that's why here it says in the interpretation, Muhsin Khan says, La muqtu'atin, it says, whose supply is not cut off, right? By change of season. So it's not seasonal, right? Nor are they out of reach by the person that wants it. It's always going to be within reach and always going to be available all the time. La muqtu'a, not in time. Or la muqtu'a, not prevent. No one is going to be prevented from that. And it says wa furushin marfu'a, and that is what is going to be couches and thrones that are raised high. Wa furushin marfu'a, yani marfu'a fawqa al-usarra irtifa'an azima. He said it will be raised very high in Jannah, and this furush is going to be from silk and gold and pearls and all that. Said la ya'lamu illallah, la ya'lamu bihi illallah. No one really knows the full glamour of it except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And lastly, it says, Inna insha'nahunna insha. It says, very we have created them maidens of special creation, which means they were created specially. فَجَعَلْنَاهُنَّ أَبْكَارًا. And they were made to be virgins. That's the maids that are going to be in Jannah. They were created specially by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and uniquely by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in such a way that they remain as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them as virgins, sigaruhun wa kibaruhun. And now also the people in Jannah are going to be in the same age, middle age, right? In their full-blown, the fullness of their youth, right? In Jannah. It says, Uruban atroba. It says, al-urub here means for someone to be loving to one's spouse. Uruban atroba, which means someone that is close to the spouse, loving of the spouse, always keeping good companionship to one's spouse. And here he says here, also from the things that some of the scholars say, is that this is one of way one can also use to maintain good family relations or relations with one's spouse. When one lives in an atmosphere where the spouse is always keeping good companionship of the other, okay, loving of the other, always wanting to be with the other person, not being tired of being in the companionship of the other party. So that's why it says Uruban Atroba, which means loving their husbands only and of equal age. Atroba means that their age is sawa, they're the same age, right, in their youth. And it says here, it says Li Ashab al-Yamin. So all these that we mentioned now is for the people on the right, for Ashab al-Yamin. And it talks about how many people will be in this Ashab al-Yamin. It said, Thullatun min al-awwalin wa thullatun min al-akhirin. For this particular group of people, there's going to be a huge number from the past generations and as well as a huge number from this generation, from the later generations. Okay, so this is a category of people that are successful, and some ulama say in the Tafsir, because they do the wajibat, they do the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded them to do, and they stay away from the prohibitions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But they might not be as, successful as some people. They might not be as unique as some people in terms of doing the things that are what mustahabbat, that are recommended, that are required, desired, right? As well as staying away from the things that are disliked, makruhat, right? So that makes them, despite fulfilling the basic requirements of their iman, to be from amongst sullatun, amongst ashabul yamin. It says Ashabul Shimal. Now it's going to move on and talk about a totally different group now, and that's Ashabul Shimal. Right? And this is people on the left. And it's going to talk about some of the punishments of the people of the left. So they're going to be on the left side. Now, another way to look at saying the right side, the left side, some ulama say that this is like the verse in Quran where it says some people receive their books with their right hand, and some of them receive their books with their left hand from their back. Okay. So these are two groups of people as well. So it's Ashabu Shimal and Ladina Akhazu Kutubahum Bishimalihim min Wara'i Dhahri. These are people that take the book, receive their books with their left hand from behind their back. So it's going to talk about the punishment these people face. So it says, Fi Samumin wa Hamim. And that means what? In fierce hot wind and boiling water. And it says here, because they're going to be welcomed with this. This samum is al-harara, al-rih al-hara, very hot wind, from blowing from the Jahannam, right? And it says hamim means ma in har. Also, this is what's a very, very hot, boiling liquid, boiling water. وَظِلٍّ مِّن يَحْمُومٍ. They'll be in a shadow of black smoke, right? That's going to cover them. They cannot see in this black smoke. La baridin wala karim. There will be no coolness for them in this. Of course, because when you say al-dhil, dhillu means a shade, right? Dhillu means a shade. But these people will be in this dhil, and there will be no coolness for them in this shade, except just hotness, right? So what is the points in the hotness. Yeah, sorry, in the shade when it is just hot. That reminds me of something where it says وَظِلٍّ مَمْدُودٍ in verse 30, talking about people in Ashabul Yamin. This mamdud means a zil that is very vast, a shade that is very vast. Some ulama say that that zil mamdud is, there's going to be like the brightness without a sun. There's no sun in Jannah. The brightness without the sun, just clear, right, and very vast. And Prophet ﷺ describes this in the hadith, where he says that the zil in Jannah is such that a horse rider will ride under it for 100 years, and it will still be under that shade in Jannah. On the flip side, for Ashab al-Shibal, says this shade for them is going to be a shade of hotness. La barid, there is no coolness in it. Wala kirim, there's no honor, there's no delight. It says here, la baridin wala kirim, not even pleasant. In the translation, it says la baridin, the shadow is neither cool nor is it pleasant. So there's no pleasantness. I know karim, when something is karim, means something is glorious, something is pleasant. When you say like or pleasant, when you say like Al-Quran al-Karim, it's the glorious Quran. Why? Because a lot of karam, there's a lot of gloriousness in it for the human being, for his faith, for his person, and all that, for the world. So he says, La baridin wa la karim. Innahum kanu qabla dhalika mutrafin. Now he's talking about them. These people, they used to be arrogant in this world. And here he mentions something also when he says, Innahum kanu qabla dhalika mutrafin, that they used to indulge in luxury in a haram way, of course. Things that are forms of delight and enjoyment that are not halal, not in a pleasant way. This is what they used to engage themselves in the dunya, badalan anil ibadah, rather than in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَكَانُوا يُسِرُّونَ, still talking about them, said وَكَانُوا, they used to يُسِرُّونَ عَلَى الْحِنْثِ الْعَظِيمِ. Now, in explaining what does it mean by يُسِرُّونَ عَلَى الْحِنْثِ الْعَظِيمِ, what does this al-hinth al-azim? They used to persist, right, in great sins. This great sin, Lama explain it, that it is what? Committing acts of shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as well as other great sins, other kaba'ir, from like killing the soul, taking somebody's soul, their heart, committing crimes, engaging in magic, things like that. These are forms of great sin. And at the head of it is what? Associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As in the other verse, Allah subhanahu says, Inna shirka dhulmun adhim. Shirk is the worst of sin, is the greatest of sin. So these people, mushrikun, that's the meaning. This ashab al-shimal, were mushrikun, munafiqun, hypocrites and polytheists. And what did they used to say? Wakanu yakulun. And this also to show you that these were munafiqun, these were kuffar, these were people that did not have iman, because they say Wakanu yakulun a'idha mitna wa kunna turaba wa idhama a'inna lamab'ud. They used to deny this al-waqi'ah, this event, this reality, which is called al-waqi'ah. They used to deny it, and they will say, when we die and we are like dust, wa'idhama, and just bones, he said, shall we then be returned? A'inna lamab'uthun, we will be brought back to life. This is al-sukriyan, right? Out of jest, out of denial. And then they ask, our aba'un al-awwalun, and also our forefathers, are you saying also our fathers that have died hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, all of them will be brought back to life? And they will say, another passage of Quran says, Fatu aba'ina in kuntum sadiqin. Go and bring our fathers if you are telling the truth. This is what they say to the believers. Go and bring those our fathers that you said. And ulama say the response to that is that what? They will be brought forth on the day of judgment. So let them wait till the day of judgment and see. So they jest in this way and say, our aba'un al-awwalun, also our forefathers that have passed, we're going to bring them also, they're going to be brought back to life. So Allah tells the Prophet to say to them, said, Qul innal awwalina wal akhirin. Truly, Allah is going to bring back to life those that have passed before and those that have come later. Said, Qul innal awwalina وَالْآخِرِينَ لَمَجْمُعُونَ إِلَى مِيقَاتِ يَوْمٍ مَعْلُومٍ. That those that pass before, those that come later, they will all be gathered together on appointed meeting for a known day. And of course, that is Yawm al-Qiyamah. So he says here that ثُمَّ إِنَّكُمْ أَيُّهَا الضَّالُونَ الْمُكَذِّبُونَ. Still referring to them, he said, مُكَذِّبُونَ ضَالُونَ. When he says, إِنَّكُمْ أَيُّهَا الضَّالُونَ, those you that are misguided, because now classifies them as being misguided for this belief and these statements that they made. Yeah, because they are whom ضَالُونَ عَنْ طَرِيقِ الْهُدَى. They are misguided from the right path, and they are following this evil way. مُكَذِّبُونَ بِالرَّسُولِ, denying the Prophet ﷺ, or rejecting or disbelieving in the Prophet and the Messenger ﷺ, with that which he has come with from the haqq, from the truth, wal-wa'd wal-wa'id, and from this punishment, this appointment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this day of judgment. He says to them, لَآكِلُونَ مِنْ شَجَرٍ مِنْ زَقُّومٍ. Part of the reward for this denial and disbelief, that you are going to what? Eat, akiluna, asharibuna. You're going to eat and drink from shajari min zakum, from a tree called zakum. And this zakum, this tree they call zakum in hell. It says it's something that is going to become difficult for them to swallow, right? And probably has thorns, that's such a way that is going to disturb their insides, right? But they have no choice but to eat it because they have nothing else to eat out of hunger. And they say it's similar to the person that is in this dunya that eats something, even though it's not something that he will normally eat, but he eats it because he has no choice. So they will eat this thing that's called zakum, and that ulama have described as something that is very unpleasant because they don't have any choice, and they will have to fill their bellies with it. You have to fill up their bellies with it, and on top of that, and they will drink on top of that called boiling water. And they will drink on top of that boiling water, and they will drink like thirsty camels, right? And here he's just basically trying to describe the ugliness of the situation of the people. He said they will be like camels that are very, very thirsty, and that their thirst has overwhelmed them, right? Or it will be as if this alhim, as it says here, Sheikh Abdullah said, he says, is like a sickness that usually affects the camels when they lack water. So he says, this is going to be their entertainment on the day of judgment. And nuzul here, they say that nuzul, the meaning is that when you have a guest, right, usually you welcome your guest by presenting them some food and some drinks as a host. And this could be that this is the first thing that you give to them. There's still more that is coming. But once they nuzul, inzal, when they arrive, this is just the arrival. This is what you give them when they arrive. This is what you give them when they arrive, and then there's still more to come. It says here that this will be their entertainment on the day of resurrection. It says, نَحْنُ خَلَقُنَاكُمْ فَلَوْلَا تُصَدِّقُونَ. Now, it's going to talk about some other things here. I'd like to stop here. He's going to talk about some other things, like it says, نَحْنُ خَلَقُنَاكُمْ فَلَوْلَا تُصَدِّقُونَ. We are the ones that created you, even if you choose to disbelieve. Right? Even though you believe it not. And then he's going to talk about in this part the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon us. The things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did for us that none of us can deny, and none of us can claim that we did all those things for ourselves. He's going to talk about that. And then after talking about that, he's going to talk about in some other verses about the status of people when they want to leave this world, when they want to die. They're also going to be in those three groups which we've mentioned earlier. It's as-sabiqun as-sabiqun, that's ulaika al-muqarrabun. Also, it's going to talk about those ashabul yamin, وَأَصْحَابُ الشِّمَالِ, which is what الضَّالُونَ الْمُكَذِّبُونَ. So these three groups, we'll talk about them also. And what is going to be that which they will face when they will die. This is how the surah is going to end. It's going to talk about these three groups towards the end of the surah. So in the first part of the surah, in general, the surah, the main lesson is that it talks about Yawm al-Qiyamah. It talks about it and calls it in the surah Al-Waqi'ah, just like it's called other names in other parts of the Quran. And Al-Waqi'ah, as we said, is an event. It could also mean a reality, something that will happen for sure, and there's no denial about it. And the people will be divided into three groups. They say, وَكُنْتُمْ أَزْوَاجًا فَكُنْتُمْ أَزْوَاجًا ثَلَاثًا. They said that you guys will be in three different groups, three different categories. And those three categories are as-sabiqun, as-sabiqun. They're the foremost ones. And they are sulatun min al-awwalin wa qalilun min al-akhirin. And then also we have what? Ashabul Yameen. And we have sulatun min al-awwalin wa sulatun min al-akhirin. And then we have ashabul shimal. And they are the ones that deny the things. Yusiruna ala al-hinth al-azim. وَكَانُوا يُصِرُّونَ عَلَى الْإِنثِ الْعَظِيمِ. They are the ones that continue in shirk, and they deny the Yawm al-Qiyamah. And this denial, of course, as we said earlier, living in the Day of Judgment, Yawm al-Qiyamah is one of the principal primary aspects of al-Iman. Denial of it, of course, is kufr, because this is denying something that's a crucial article of faith. And these people, they fall in this category, Ashabu Shimal. It's very crucial that we should think about this. Something else to mention here at this point is that these verses, when we read about it and we see that it just talks about the hereafter and the things of the hereafter, what's the implication of that? What are we supposed to learn from that? So it's basically, we learn from that just to increase ourselves in the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to remind ourselves that all the good that we are doing in this world, we do it for a reason. We do it for something, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reward us. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards good with good. Al-jaza'u min jins al-amal. The reward is going to be like the same thing as the action. So if you do excellently well, the reward is going to be excellent. If you do good, the reward is going to be good. And if you do bad, the reward is going to be bad. So basically, this surah, the purpose of the surah, as ulama of Tafsir say, is to encourage us, to remind us of being steadfast in our actions, of turning back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? As mentioned in this surah, and also reminding us of the benefits and the report of us. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك وجزاكم الله خيرا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. We say Jazakum Allah khairan to our speaker for this soul-inspiring lecture. We ask Almighty Allah to reward you abundantly. Jazakum Allah khairan. My dear brothers and sisters, so as we've all heard from our speaker, let us be obedient and dutiful to our Creator, Allah Azza wa Jal. After affirming that we are Muslim, after establishing the kalimatu la ilaha illallah, it is very incumbent upon every Muslim to always establish obligatory prayers, salawatul khams. Now we are in the month of the blessed month of Ramadan. There are some that identify themselves as Muslims. They will be fasting together with us, but they don't usually pray obligatory prayers. This is very, very important that as Muslims, we must be observing our daily prayer. In one of the hadiths of the Prophet that says, أول ما يحاسب العبد يوم القيامة الصلاة فإن صلحت صلح ساهر العمل وإن فسدت فسد ساهر العمل أو كما قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. That the first thing that will be held accountable on the day of the resurrection is our prayers, our obligatory prayer. If it is good, if it is well perfected, the rest of our deed will be good. And if it is not well perfected, the rest of our deed will go in vain. So as Muslims, so we have to be observing our daily prayers. This is very important. I think Sheikh Uthaymeen, in fact, nearly all our scholars were asked that what is the condition of a person that calls himself as a Muslim, but he fasts during the month of Ramadan, but he doesn't pray? All our scholar categories stated that such a person is not about a kafir, that his fasting will not be accepted, that such a person is just wasting his or her time. So my dear brothers and sisters, so let us take our ibadat very serious. So after affirming the kalimat la ilaha illallah, it is very important that we observe our daily prayers every blessed day. Once again, we thank our speaker, Dr. Moise Anibri, for this great lecture. May Allah increase you in beneficial knowledge and count these as part of in the scale of your good deeds. Allahumma ameen. So maybe we'll give room for maybe one or two, if there's any comment or question, before we call it a day, inshallah. If there's any question for our speaker regarding this today's presentation. Yes. You can raise your hand, please, if you have any question or in form of contribution in 1 to 2 minutes. Okay, Jazakumullah khairan. I think the presentation is well understood. So in the absence of any question, we thank all our brothers and sisters for attending to this program. Inshallah. Anyone want to speak? Okay. Inshallah, we will be meeting tomorrow at NCUPM for male in Abwa Hall, and for our sisters. So the converging point is at the residence of Dr. Saeed Ganew. So the house number is house number 6210 Lina Street, Nakhil Court, KFPM. So let us meet tomorrow same time for the continuation of this the Tafsir of Surah Al-Waqiyah. So we say Jazakumullah khairan. So let us, until we meet tomorrow again, I say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi